Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
Welcome back to live studios here in Govardhana Dham, ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram, just across the street from Giriraj, Govardhana. We're taking up from where we left off this morning. We're on the 7th canto, 10th chapter, Prahlad, the best among exalted devotees. We're going to hear about the exalted character of Prahlad Maharaj. We're starting with text 6. O my Lord, this is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to Lord Nrsingadev. O my Lord, I am your unmotivated servant, and you are my eternal master. There is no need of our being anything other than master and servant. You are naturally my master, and I am naturally your servant. We have no other relationship. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jivara Sarupa Hoya Krishnara Nitya Das. Every living being is eternally a servant of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhuktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. I am the proprietor of all planets, and I am the supreme enjoyer. This is the natural position of the Lord, and the natural position of a living being is to surrender unto Him. Sarva-dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. If this relationship continues, then real happiness exists eternally between the master and the servant. Unfortunately, when this eternal relationship is disturbed, the living entity wants to become separately happy and thinks that the master is his order supplier. In this way, there cannot be happiness. Nor should the master cater to the desires of the servant. If he does, he is not the real master. The real master commands, you must do this, and the real servant immediately obeys the order. Unless this relationship between the Supreme Lord and the subordinate living entity is established, there can be no real happiness. The living entity is ashraya, always subordinate, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is vishaya, the supreme objective, the goal of life. Unfortunate persons trapped in this material world do not know this. Nate vidu svartagatim hi vishnum. Illusioned by the material energy, everyone in this material world is unaware that the only aim of life is to approach Lord Vishnu. Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam padam tasmat paradatam devi tudiyanam samacharam. In the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva explains to his wife Parvati, the goddess Durga, that the highest goal of life is to satisfy Lord Vishnu, who can be satisfied only when his servant is satisfied. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore teaches, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayor Das Anudas Anudas. One must become a servant of the servant. Prahlad Maharaj also prayed to Lord Nrsingadev that he might be engaged as the servant of the Lord's servant. This is the prescribed method of devotional service. As soon as a devotee wants the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be his order supplier, the Lord immediately refuses to become the master of such a motivated devotee. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Yayatam mam prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamyaham. As one surrenders unto me, I reward him accordingly. Materialistic persons are generally inclined to material profits. As long as one continues in such an unadulterated position, he does not receive the benefit of returning home, back to Godhead. Text 7. Yadidasyasime kamam, a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray to you from your Lordship that within the core of my heart, I'm going to read this again. It has to be perfect. This is a very important verse. Thank you. O my Lord, best of the givers of benediction, if you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray from your Lordship that within the core of my heart there be no material desires. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us how to pray for benedictions from the Lord. He said, Nadanam najanana sundarim kavitam ba jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmani shure bhavatad bhakti rahaitu kitvayi. O my Lord, I do not want from you any amount of wealth, nor many followers, nor a beautiful wife, for these are all materialistic desires. But if I have to ask you for any benediction, I pray that in whatever forms of life I may take my birth, under any circumstances, I will not be bereft of your transcendental devotional service. Devotees are always on the positive platform, in contrast to the Mayavadis who want to make everything impersonal or void. One cannot remain void, shunyavadi. Rather, one must possess something. Therefore, the devotee on the positive side wants to possess something. And this possession is very nicely described by Prahlad Maharaj, who says, if I must take some benediction from you, I pray that within the core of my heart there may be no material desires. The desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not at all material. Text 8. O my Lord, because of lusty desires from the very beginning of one's birth, the functions of one's senses, mind, life, body, religion, patience, intelligence, shyness, opulence, strength, memory, and truthfulness are vanquished. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, kamam rid rogam, materialistic life means that one is afflicted by a formidable disease called lusty desire. Liberation means freedom from lusty desires, because it is only due to such desires that one must accept repeated birth and death. As long as one's lusty desires are unfulfilled, one must take birth after birth to fulfill them. Because of material desires, therefore, one performs various types of activities and receives various types of bodies with which to try to fulfill desires that are never satisfied. The only remedy is to take to devotional service, which begins when one is free from all material desires. Anyabilashita shunyam. Anyabilashita means material desire, and shunyam means free from. The spiritual soul has spiritual activities and spiritual desires as described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti rahaituki tvayi. Unalloyed devotion to the service of the Lord is the only spiritual desire. To fulfill this spiritual desire, however, one must be free from all material desires. Desirelessness means freedom from material desires. This is described by Srila Rupa Goswami as anyabilashita shunyam. As soon as one has material desires, one loses his spiritual identity. Then all the paraphernalia of one's life, including one's senses, body, religion, patience, and intelligence, are deviated from one's original Krishna consciousness. As soon as one has material desires, one cannot properly use his senses, intelligence, mind, and so forth for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayavadi philosophers want to become impersonal, senseless, and mindless, but that is not possible. The living entity must be living, always existing with desires, ambitions, and so on. These should be purified, however, so that one can desire spiritually and be spiritually ambitious without material contamination. In every living entity, these propensities exist because he is a living entity. In every living entity, these propensities exist because he is a living entity. I like that. In every living entity, these propensities exist because he is a living entity. When materially contaminated, however, one is put into the hands of material misery, janma mrityu jara-vyadi. If one wants to stop repeated birth and death, one must take to the devotional service of the Lord. Sarvapadi nivirnuktam tatpadat nimanirmalam rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchite. Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. Text 9. O my Lord, when a human being is able to give up all the material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. Purport. Atheistic men sometimes criticize a devotee by saying, if you do not want to take any benediction from the Lord, and if the servant of the Lord is as opulent as the Lord himself, why do you ask for the benediction of being engaged as the Lord's servant? Sridhar Swami comments, Bhagavat samam aishvrayaya Bhagavatva, becoming as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not mean becoming one with him or equal to him, although in the spiritual world the servant is equally as opulent as the master. The servant of the Lord is engaged in the service of the Lord as a servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover, all of whom are equally as opulent as the Lord. This is Achintya Bhedha Bheda Tattva. The master and servant are different, yet equal in opulence. This is the meaning of simultaneous difference from the Supreme Lord and oneness with him. Text 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Purushaya Mahatmane Haraye Bhuta Singhaya Brahmane Paramatmane. O my Lord, full of six opulences, O Supreme Person, O Supreme Soul, killer of all miseries, O Supreme Person in the form of a wonderful lion and man, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. In the previous verse, Prahlad Maharaj has explained that a devotee can achieve the platform of Bhagavatva, being as good as the Supreme Person. But this does not mean that the Lord loses his position as a servant. Excuse me, I got distracted from a message up here. In the previous verse, Prahlad Maharaj has explained that a devotee can achieve the platform of Bhagavatva, being as good as the Supreme Person. But this does not mean that the devotee loses his position as a servant. A pure servant of the Lord, although as opulent as the Lord, is still meant to offer respectful obeisances to the Lord in service. Prahlad Maharaj was engaged in pacifying the Lord, and therefore he did not consider himself equal to the Lord. He defined his position as a servant and offered respectful obeisances unto the Lord. What do you mean?
For the record, Samriprasad said, getting what he said it.
Well, I was just appreciating how taking this, he's taking how Prahlad Maharaj said, Namo, I offer my respectful obeisances, and then he's saying now by definition, because he's offering his respectful obeisances. He's a servant. Even though he's on the same level of opulence, he's not different from the Lord, and he's in the spiritual world and is a Nityasiddha. The difference remains because one person is addressed with "I offer my respectful obeisances to you," and the other one is saying, "I offer my respectful obeisances to you." So by definition, in that word namaha, there's a difference. I just thought that was very profound.
It is profound. I marked this last verse as pivotal, a pivotal verse, an idea. We've been hearing so much about, from the Bhagavatam ever since the 5th canto, about abandoning the plans that we have for the material world and various desires and surrendering to Krishna. And here in just such a succinct way, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that this is what happens when you are able to abandon all of your own self-centered ideas and desires, is that you're free to completely embrace the existence of the Lord. It reminded me of Samoham Sarvabhuteshu Nami Dveshostina Priya Na Bhajanti Tumam Bhaktya Mai Te Teshu Chapyaham. Krishna says, I'm equal to everyone, but whoever surrenders unto me is in me, and I'm in him. And this is such an enticing idea to me, that you could just decide to abandon wholesale any kind of self-centered desires and just take up the mission of the Lord completely, following Prahlad Maharaj's example. And contrary to what the material mind thinks, one becomes he gains everything, you get everything. Whereas you hold on to these miserly little desires, and then you're prevented from actually entering into the existence of the Lord and having him fully enter into you. Maharaj is shaking his head yes, so we'd like to hear the comment of why he's shaking his head yes. This means profoundly yes.
Not my, but thy will, O Lord.
Havi Prabhu? See if you can top that. It's a poem.
It's curious.
It's a poem jam.
That in this world there's such a investment in energy and effort to generate an equal society, and it simply doesn't work. And then here it's a very clear statement that the Lord and the servant live in the same. Everybody lives in the highest standard of life.
Yeah, and also just the obvious point is that everyone wants to have the most opulence possible. But after hearing about Hiranyakashipu, we see that the greatest endeavor you could possibly make, and no one's ever going to beat him. I mean, it's already, the Olympic record's been smashed, and it's so far smashed for materialistic austerities that no one will ever duplicate it again. But still, Prahlad said within a second he lost it all, so I don't want anything to do with it. And it's so encouraging. It's information people don't have, that if you surrender to Krishna, then actually you become opulent and happy, just like you want. I mean, why didn't I think of this before? Okay, there it is. Where are we now? 11:11. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Prahlad, a devotee like you never desires any kind of material opulences, either in this life or in the next. Nonetheless, I order you to enjoy the opulences of the demons in this material world, acting as their king until the end of the duration of time occupied by Manu." Purport. One Manu lives for a duration of time calculated to be an aggregate of 71 yuga cycles, each of which equals 4,300,000 years. Although atheistic men like to enjoy material opulences and they endeavor with great energy to build big residences, roads, cities, and factories, unfortunately they cannot live more than 80, 90, or at the utmost 100 years. Although the materialist exerts so much energy to create a kingdom of hallucinations, he is unable to enjoy it for more than a few years. However, because Prahlad Maharaj was a devotee, the Lord allowed him to enjoy material opulences as the king of the materialists. Prahlad Maharaj had taken birth in the family of Hiranyakashipu, who was the topmost materialist. And since Prahlad was the bona fide heir of his father, the Supreme Lord allowed him to enjoy the kingdom created by his father for so many years that no materialist could calculate them. A devotee does not have to desire material opulence, but if he is a pure devotee, there is ample opportunity for him to enjoy material happiness also without personal endeavor. Therefore, everyone is advised to take to devotional service under all circumstances. If one desires material opulence, he can also become a pure devotee, and his desires will be fulfilled. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udadati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or whether he desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. 12. It does not matter that you are in the material world. You should always continuously hear the instructions and messages given by me, and always be absorbed in thought of me, for I am the Supersoul existing in the core of everyone's heart. Therefore give up fruitive activities and worship me. Purport. When a devotee becomes materially very opulent, one should not think that he is enjoying the results of his fruitive activities. A devotee in this material world uses all material opulences for the service of the Lord because he is planning how to serve the Lord with these opulences, as advised by the Lord himself. Whatever material opulence is within his possession, he engages to expand the glories and service of the Lord. A devotee never performs any fruitive or ritualistic ceremony to enjoy the results of such karma. Rather, a devotee knows that karma kanda is meant for the less intelligent man. Narottam Das Thakur says in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika, Karma kanda jnana karma keva lavishera bandha. Karma kanda jnana kanda keva lavishera bandha. Both karma kanda and jnana kanda, fruitive activities and speculation about the Supreme Lord, are like pots of poison. One who is attracted to karma kanda and jnana kanda spoils his existence as a human being. Therefore, devotee is never interested in karma kanda or jnana kanda, but is simply interested in favorable service to the Lord, anukulyena krishnanushilanam, or cultivation of spiritual activities in devotional service. T's are not D's. My dear Prahlad, while you are in this material world, you will exhaust all the reactions of pious activity. By feeling happiness and by acting piously, you will neutralize impious activity. Because of the powerful time factor, you will give up your body, but the glories of your activities will be sung in the upper planetary systems, and being fully freed from all bondage, you will return home back to Godhead. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Evam praladas yamshena sadhana siddhatvam nitya siddhatvam cha narada didvaj geyam. There are two classes of devotees, the sadhana siddha and the nitya siddha. Prahlad Maharaj is a mixed siddha. That is, he is perfect partly because of executing devotional service and partly because of eternal perfection. Thus he is compared to such devotees as Narada. Formerly Narada Muni was the son of a maidservant, and therefore in his next birth he attained perfection, sadhana siddhi, because of having executed devotional service. Yet he is also a nitya siddha because he never forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word kushalena is very important. Which word?
Kushalena.
One should live in the material world very expertly. The material world is known as the world of duality because one sometimes has to act impiously and sometimes has to act piously. Although one does not want to act impiously, the world is so fashioned that there is always danger. Thus, even when performing devotional service, a devotee has to create many enemies. Yep. Prahlad Maharaj himself had experience of this, for even his father became his enemy. A devotee Supreme Lord, so that the reactions of suffering cannot touch him. This is the expert management of papa punya, pious and impious activities. A devotee should expertly manage to think always of the Supreme Lord so that the reactions of suffering cannot touch him. This is the expert management of papa punya, pious and impious activities. An exalted devotee like Prahlad Maharaj is Jivan Mukta. He is liberated even in this very life in the material body. Kushalena. You have to be expert. You have to live in the material world very expertly. 14. One who always remembers your activities and my activities also, and who chants the prayers you have offered, becomes free in due course of time from the reactions of material activities. Purport. Here it is stated that anyone who chants and hears about the activities of Prahlad Maharaj, and in relationship with Prahlad's activities, the activities in the Sringadev, gradually becomes free from all the bondage of fruitive activities, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.15, 2.56. Yam hina vyatayante purusham purusharshabha samatuka sukham tiram somratatvai kalpate. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Dukeshvanu vigna manaha sukeshu vigataspriha vitaraga bhayakrodha stitadir munar uchate. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger is called a sage of steady mind. A devotee should not be aggrieved in an awkward position, nor should he feel extraordinarily happy in material opulence. This is the way of expert management of material life. Because a devotee knows how to manage expertly, he is called Jivan Mukta. Because a devotee knows how to manage expertly, he is called Jivan Mukta. As Rupa Goswami explains in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikilasyap yavastasu jivan mukta su uchate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or, in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within this material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. Because of constantly engaging in devotional service in any condition of life, a devotee is free from all material bondage. Bhakti punati manishta shvapakan apisambhavad. Even one born in a family of meat-eaters is purified if he engages in devotional service. Bhagavatam 11:14-21. Srila Jiva Goswami cites this verse in logically supporting that anyone who chants about the pure life and activities of Prahlad Maharaj is free from the reactions of material activities.
(15 through 17). Little triple double here. Prahlad Maharaj said, O Supreme Lord, because you are so merciful to the fallen souls, I ask you for only one benediction. I know that my father, at the time of his death, had already been purified by your glance upon him, but because of his ignorance of your beautiful power and supremacy, he was unnecessarily angry at you, falsely thinking that you were the killer of his brother. Thus he directly blasphemed your lordship, the spiritual master of all living beings, and committed heavily sinful activities directed against me. your devotee. I wish that he be excused for these sinful activities. Babadi Bab. Purport. Although Hiranyakashipu was purified, as soon as he came in contact with the Lord's lap, and the Lord saw him, Prahlad Maharaj still wanted to hear from the Lord's own mouth that his father had been purified by the Lord's causeless mercy. Prahlad Maharaj offered this prayer to the Lord for the sake of his father. As a Vaishnava son, despite all the inconveniences imposed upon him by his father, he could not forget his father's affection. 18. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Prahlad, O most pure, O great saintly person, your father has been purified, along with 21 forefathers in your family. Because you were born in this family, the entire dynasty has been purified. Purport. The word tri saptabi means 7 multiplied by 3. In one's family, one can count back 4 or 5 generations to one's great-grandfather or even one's great-grandfather's grandfather. But since the Lord mentions 21 forefathers, this indicates that the benediction expands to other families also. Before the present family in which one has taken birth, one must have been born in other families. Whoa. Thus, when a Vaishnava takes birth in a family, by the grace of the Lord, he purifies not only that family, but also the families of his previous births. Text 19. Whenever and wherever there are peaceful, equipoised devotees who are well behaved and decorated with all good qualities, that place and the dynasties there, even if condemned, are purified. Purport. Wherever exalted devotees stay, not only they and their dynasties, but the entire country is purified. Text 20. My dear Prahlad, king of the Daityas, because of being attached to devotional service to me, my devotee does not distinguish between lower and higher living entities. In all respects, he is never jealous of anyone.
It reminds me of in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. How's the Bengali start? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I have it memorized, but I can't remember how it starts. But he's referring to a book called the Sri Krishna Vijay. Shri Nandanandana Krishna Mor Pranath. Shri Nandanandana Krishna Mor Pranath. He says in this verse that the essence of it is that there was a poet, a Vaishnava poet, and he wrote this book of poetry glorifying Krishna, and it wasn't perfectly written. You know, there were supposed to be sonnets, and there was supposed to be a certain number of meters per verse, and many of them are ragged. They don't actually do that. But because he says in the book, Shri Nandanandana Krishna Mor Pranath, that Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is my life and soul. What, you got it? Let's see. Nandanandana Krishna Mor Pranath E Bakke Vakainutar Vamshera Hatto. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is my life and soul. By this statement, I am sold into the hands of the descendants of Gunaraj Khan. So Gunaraj Khan wrote this poem, that little book. It became very popular. And then Mahaprabhu goes on to say, even a dog in that place is dear to me. Everybody there is dear to me. Because of that devotee wrote that book and is there in the town. What auspiciousness is spread by, you can think of by, I'm sorry, Marsha.
Of the world, and that's exactly what Prabhupada said. Exactly what Prabhupada said. My goal is to put a set of Bhagavatams in every house in the world.
He said every respectable gentleman. And I want this set of books to be in the home of every respectable gentleman. But I was thinking the same thing. You know, one book even that goes out. What to speak? He wrote this book. It was copied by hand, and Sri Krishna Vijay. And now, because of that, the whole village becomes benedicted. What to speak of these books going out here, there, and everywhere with the, the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita. What kind of influence those are having on the planet? Thinking like that instead of like tit for tat. You distributed 1 million books. Where's your 1 million people that came back? It's short-sighted. 21. Those who follow your example will naturally become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotee, and others should follow in your footsteps. Purport: in this connection, Srila Madhvacharya quotes a verse from the Skanda Purana, Ratertu Tatvikandevan Naradam Dims Tataivacha Prahradad Utama Konyu Vishnu Bhaktau Jagatraye Naradadims Tataivacha. There are many, many devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they have been enumerated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.20 as follows. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Balir Vayasakir Vayam. Of the 12 authorized devotees, Lord Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Kapila Muni, and so on, Prahlad Maharaj is understood to be the best example. My dear child, your father has already been purified just by the touch of my body at the time of his death. Nonetheless, the duty of a son is to perform the Shraddha ritualistic ceremony after his father's death, so that his father may be promoted to a planetary system where he may become a good citizen and devotee. Says that who was already purified, he had to take birth on a higher planetary system. Prahlad Maharaj to perform anything in Vishwanath. Prahlad Maharaj was advised to perform the ritualistic ceremony as a matter of etiquette, for the Supreme Personality of God under no circumstances wants to stop the regulative principles. Madhva Muni also instructs, Madhu Kaitabao Bhaktya Bhava Dhurao Bhagavato Mritao Tama Eva Kramad Aptao Bhaktya Ched Yo Harim Yayao. When the demons Madhu and Kaitaba were killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their kinsmen also observed the ritualistic ceremonies so that these demons could return home back to Godhead. Boy, just see the power of doing the ritualistic ceremonies after the death of somebody. See what I'm saying? Is it? Yeah. Actually, they died within a year of each other, and 16 months, and I thought I was going to get my father's ashes right away. My mom thought she was going to be really detached, but she wasn't. Afterwards, she's like, oh, I got to keep these. So when my mother died, then we got both the ashes, and we put them in the Jamuna at the same time. It's kind of far off. But yeah, we did that. We're reading in the first canto about after Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira was disconsolate about all the killings. He took it personally that he had done it, and it was his fault and everything. And I mean, so many relatives had died. And then they did these ceremonies there. And Krishna was there. He observed them also along with them. And when we were reading that section recently, we're just considering how important those are in human society. Not only for the ritualistic aspect, not just that it's ritualistic, but that there's some connection, there's a benefit, but also for the people who are left behind. They need closure. And I just see, like, it's really difficult to handle when somebody just dies. You actually have to process it for a while if you're really close and attached. and having these well-informed ceremonies where you feel like you're doing something, reaching back out. Like I remember after my mother died, and then, we did a program like we were supposed to. We had a feast, invited all the Vaishnavas. We offered prasadam and then offered to my mother's picture and all these things. Put her ashes and my father's into the Jamuna, and there's a feeling of completion, like you're not helpless. You can do something.
My dear mother, Nandarani Devi Dasi, has received a feast to her picture and offering every year in 2 places since she departed in 1997, here and in Radhakund.
It's curious to note that Dhritarashtra, although he was very heinous and unjust and cruel, still under the instructions of Vidura, he at that same lifetime he went back home.
Yeah. And this image of Hiranyakashipu in the next life going to the heavenly planets is just kind of like, hey, what are you doing here? It's like, I was Hiranyakashipu, I just had to come up here for a few eons and hang out with y'all. Hey, he was Hiranyakashipu. Shuffles into town. I'm sorry about all that. 23. After performing the ritualistic ceremonies, take charge of your father's kingdom. Sit upon the throne and do not be disturbed by materialistic activities. Please keep your mind fixed upon me, without transgressing the injunctions of the Vedas. As a matter of formality, you may perform your particular duties. Purport: when one becomes a devotee, he no longer has any duty to the Vedic regulative principles. One has many duties to perform, but if one becomes fully devoted to the Lord, he no longer has any such obligations. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.41, Devarshi bhuta nandranam pitranam nakinkaro nayam ranicha rajan sarvatmana yasharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihrittakartam. One who has fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord is no longer a debtor to his forefathers, the great sages, human society, the common man, or any living entity. The Supreme Personality of Godhead nonetheless advised Prahlad Maharaj to follow the regulative principles, for since he was going to be the king, others would follow his example. Thus, Lord Nrsingadev advised Prahlad Maharaj to engage in his political duties so that people would become the Lord's devotees. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tattadevi taro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anivartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Bhagavad Gita 3:21. One should not be attached to any materialistic activities, but a devotee may perform such activities as an example to show the common man that one should not deviate from the Vedic injunctions. 24. Srinarada Chikirshur Lokasangraham. Sri Narada Muni continued, thus as the Supreme Personality of Godhead ordered, Prahlad Maharaj performed the ritualistic ceremonies for his father. O King Yudhishthira, he was then enthroned in the kingdom of Hiranyakashipu as directed by the Brahmanas. Purport: it is essential that society be divided into 4 groups of men: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Here we see that although Prahlad was perfect in every respect, he nonetheless followed the instructions of the Brahmanas, who performed the Vedic rituals. Therefore, in society there must be a very intelligent class of leaders who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge, so that they can guide the entire populace to follow the Vedic principles and thus gradually become most perfect and eligible to return home back to Godhead. 25. Lord Brahma, surrounded by the other demigods, was bright-faced because the Lord was pleased. Thus he offered prayers to the Lord with transcendental words.
How can you tell if the Lord's pleased with you? You become bright-faced. Remember what Prabhupada used to say? People would sometimes say, how do your devotees are also always bright-faced? How has that happened? 26. Lord Brahma said, O Supreme Lord of all lords, proprietor of the entire universe, O benedictor of all living entities, O original person, Adi Purusha, because of our good fortune, you have now killed this sinful demon who was giving trouble to the entire universe. Purport. The word Purvaja is described in Bhagavad Gita 10.8. Ahang sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pravartate. All the demigods, including Lord Brahma, are manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the original person, the cause of all causes, is Govinda, the Adi Purusham. Text 27. This demon, Hiranyakashipu, received from me the benediction that he would not be killed by any living being within my creation. With this assurance, and with strength derived from austerities and mystic power, he became excessively proud and transgressed all the Vedic injunctions. 28. By great fortune, Hiranyakashipu's son, Prahlad Maharaj, has now been released from death, for although he is a child, he is an exalted devotee. Now he is fully under the protection of your lotus feet. 29. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the Supreme Soul. If one meditates upon your transcendental body, you naturally protect him from all sources of fear, even the imminent danger of death. Purport. Everyone is sure to die, for no one is excused from the hands of death, which is but a feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. When one becomes a devotee, however, he is not destined to die according to the limited duration of life. Everyone has a limited duration of life, but a devotee's lifetime can be extended by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, who is able to nullify the results of one's karma. Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. This is the statement of Brahma Samhita. A devotee is not under the laws of karma. Therefore, even a devotee's scheduled death can be avoided by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. God protects the devotee even from the extreme danger of death. 30. The Personality of Godhead replied, My dear Lord Brahma, O great Lord born from the lotus flower, just as it is dangerous to feed milk to a snake, so it is dangerous to give benedictions to demons, who are by nature ferocious and jealous. I warn you not to give such benedictions to any demon again. Narada Muni continued, O King Yudhishthir, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is not visible to an ordinary human being, spoke in this way, instructing Lord Brahma. Then, being worshipped by Brahma, the Lord disappeared from that place. 32. Prahlad Maharaj then worshipped and offered prayers to all the demigods, such as Brahma, Shiva, and the Prajapatis, who were all parts of the Lord. Thereafter, along with Shukracharya, and other great saints, Lord Brahma, whose seat is on the lotus flower, made Prahlad the king of all the demons and giants in the universe. Purport. By the grace of Lord Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Maharaj became a greater king than his father, Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad's inauguration was performed by Lord Brahma in the presence of other saintly persons and demigods. 34. O King Yudhishthir, after all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, were properly worshipped by Prahlad Maharaj, they offered Prahlad their utmost benedictions and then returned to their respective abodes. Text 35. Thus the two associates of Lord Vishnu, who had become Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the sons of Diti, were both killed. By illusion, they had thought that the Supreme Lord, who was situated in everyone's heart, was their enemy. Purport. The discourse concerning Lord Nrsimhadev and Prahlad Maharaj began when Maharaj Yudhishthir asked Narada how Shishupal had merged into the body of Krishna. That was a long time ago. It's a few chapters ago. Shishupal and Dantavakra were the same Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Here Narada Muni is relating how in 3 different births the associates of Lord Vishnu were killed by Lord Vishnu himself. First they were the demons Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. 36. Being cursed by the Brahmanas, the same 2 associates took birth again as Kumbhakarna and the 10-headed Ravana. These 2 Rakshasas were killed by Lord Ramachandra's extraordinary power. 37. Pierced by the arrows of Lord Ramachandra, both Kumbhakarna and Ravana lay on the ground and left their bodies fully absorbed in thought of the Lord, just as they had in their previous births as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. 38. They both took birth again in human society as Shishupal and Dantavakra and continued in the same enmity toward the Lord. It is they who merged into the body of the Lord in your presence. Purport. Vairānubandhena, acting like the Lord's enemy, is also beneficial for the living entity. Kamad, dveshad, bayat, snehad, whether in lusty desire, anger, fear, or envy of the Lord, somehow or other, as recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami, tasmat kena pyubhayena, one should become attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ultimately achieve the goal of returning home, back to Godhead. What then is to be said of one who is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover? Text 39. Not only Shishupal and Dantavakra, but also many other kings who acted as enemies of Krishna attained salvation at the time of death. Because they thought of the Lord, they received spiritual bodies and forms the same as his, just as worms captured by a black drone obtain the same type of body as the drone. Purport. The mystery of yogic meditation is explained here. Real yogis always meditate on the form of Vishnu within their hearts. Consequently, at the time of death, they give up their bodies while thinking of the form of Vishnu and thus attain Vishnu Loka, Vaikuntha Loka, where they receive bodily features the same as those of the Lord. From the 6th canto we have already learned that when the Vishnu Dutas came from Vaikuntha to deliver Jamil, they looked exactly like Vishnu, with 4 hands and the same features as Vishnu. Therefore we may conclude that if one practices thinking of Vishnu and is fully absorbed in thinking of him at the time of death, one returns home, back to Godhead. Even enemies of Krishna, who thought of Krishna in fear, bhaya, such as King Kamsa, received bodies in a spiritual identity similar to that of the Lord. Text 40. By devotional service, pure devotees, who incessantly think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, receive bodies similar to his. This is known as Sarupya Mukti. Although Shishupal, Dantabhakra, and other kings thought of Krishna as an enemy, they also achieved the same result. Purport. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, in connection with Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami, it is explained that a devotee should externally execute his routine devotional service in a regular way, but should always inwardly think of the particular mellow in which he is attracted to the service of the Lord. This constant thought of the Lord makes the devotee eligible to return home back to Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimam eti. After giving up his body, a devotee does not again receive a material body, but goes back to Godhead and receives a spiritual body, resembling those of the Lord's eternal associates, whose activities he followed. However the devotee likes to serve the Lord, he may constantly think of the Lord's associates, the cowherd boys, the gopis, the Lord's father and mother, his servants, and the trees, land, animals, plants, and water in the Lord's abode. Because of constantly thinking of these features, one acquires a transcendental position. Kings like Shishupal, Dantavakra, Kamsa, Pondraka, Narakasura, and Shalva were all similarly delivered. This is confirmed by Madhvacharya. Pondrake Narake Chaiva, Shalve Kamse che Rukmini, Avishtas tu Harer Bhaktas, Tadvaktya Harimapire. Pondraka, Narakasura, Shalva, and Kamsa were all inimical toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because all these kings constantly thought of him, they achieved the same liberation, Sarupya Mukti. The Jnana Bhakta, the devotee who follows the path of Jnana, also attains the same destination. If even the enemies of the Lord achieve salvation by constantly thinking about the Lord, what is to be said of pure devotees who always engage in the Lord's service and who think of nothing but the Lord in every activity?
"41. Everything you asked about how Shishupal and others attained salvation, although they were inimical, has now been explained to you by me. In this narration about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, various expansions or incarnations of the Lord have been described, and the killing of the two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, has also been described. Purport: Avatars or incarnations are expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Govinda. Advaitam achyutam anadim ananta rupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha videshu dulamam adulamam atma bhaktao govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is the original person, non-dual, infallible, and without beginning. Although he expands into unlimited forms, he is still the original, and although he is the oldest person, he always appears as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, and all-knowing forms of the Lord cannot be understood by the academic wisdom of the Vedas, but they are always manifest to pure unalloyed devotees. Brahma Samhita 5.33. The Brahma Samhita describes the avatars. Indeed, all the avatars are described in the authentic scriptures. No one can become an avatar or incarnation, although this has become fashionable in the age of Kali. The avatars are described in the authentic scriptures, Shastras, and therefore, before one risks accepting a pretender as an avatar, one should refer to the Shastras. The Shastras say everywhere that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead and that he has innumerable avatars or incarnations. Elsewhere in the Brahma Samhita it is said, Ramadi Muti Shukalani Amina Tishtan. Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and many others are consecutive expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After Krishna comes Balaram. After Balaram is Sankarshana, then Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Narayana, and then the Purusha avatars. Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshayi Vishnu, and Shiradakshayi Vishnu all of them are avatars. One must hear about the avatars. Narrations about such avatars are called avatarakatha, the narrations of Krishna's expansions. Hearing and chanting these narrations is completely pious. Shinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtanaha. One who hears and chants can become punya, purified of material contamination. Whenever there are references to the avatars, religious principles are established, and demons who are against Krishna are killed. The Krishna consciousness movement is spreading all over the world with two aims: to establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to kill all the pretenders who falsely present themselves as avatars. The preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement must carry this conviction very carefully within their hearts and kill the demons who, in many tactful ways, vilify the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. If we take shelter of Nrsingadev and Prahlad Maharaj, it will be easier to kill the demons who are against Krishna and to thus re-establish Krishna's supremacy. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the original Lord. Prahlad Maharaj is our Guru, and Krishna is our worshipable God. As advised by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhai Bhukti Lata Bij. If we can be successful in getting the mercy of Prahlad Maharaj, and also that of Nrsingadev, then our Krishna consciousness movement will be extremely successful. The demon Hiranyakashipu had so many ways to try to become God himself, but although Prahlad Maharaj was chastised and threatened in many ways, he rigidly refused to accept his powerful demoniac father as God. Following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, we should reject all the rascals who pretend to be God. We must accept Krishna and his incarnations and no one else. Yes, Prabhu? Well, in other places, Prabhupada gives the definition of what it means to kill. He says repeatedly elsewhere that killing means to kill their demoniac spirit. He says, of course, in Kali Yuga you'd have to kill everybody. And he also said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came without weapons, and except his beauty was a weapon. And that was meant to kill the demoniac spirit, which he did so many times. There's examples of how Jagai Madai and so many others had demoniac spirit, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu killed it. So that's what it means. And Prabhupada said, even in practical terms, this is not something that we could possibly do. Of course, we don't even bring that up. It's not a possibility necessarily. Is that better?
There's a letter where
Oh, here's the mic.
like this to my father and tells him that such people should be killed.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the letter.
Yeah.
I won't mention the name who he's referring to, but in a literal way, it seems like that.
Well, call your dad. Tell him to get busy.
Like we see in the world, ISIS and other extreme religious groups. As Kali Yuga progresses, there may be the need for this.
Well, Srila Prabhupada would say things like that, meaning, well for the world, good for the world, if this person would be killed. But he's not saying that we should go out and kill him. That's taking it to one step too far.
You have to look in the context also. I mean, this is the pastime of Lord Nrsingadev. He just tore Hiranyakashipu to shreds. So there's a spirit of Vira Ras here that Prabhupada's in. Like kill them all, and but that's why it's important to read all of Prabhupada's books. Anybody can take out one section here, and people will, and they'll say, "Look, you guys are fanatics." It's like, look at this, but we should know what Prabhupada meant by that. There are multiple places where Prabhupada, explains what this means in context. Any other thing you were going to say?
It is said that in this age, the enemy or the demon lives also in everyone's heart, so we should kill everyone.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned, that Prabhupada said, okay, demonic spirit, you'll have to kill everybody. Yeah?
We do see a lot of demoniac things taking place on the planet.
Yeah.
Massive cow slaughter, deforestation, etc. There are extreme planet warriors or vegan groups. In the anarchists. In the UK, the government considered environmental terrorism now a crime because people are going to extreme lengths to try and prevent the environment from being damaged, because there are actual demoniac things taking place on the planet. But our business is not to fight it on that level. It's to fight it more with the devotional aspects of changing the heart.
Whenever Krishna comes, or Vishnu, he's got weapons in his hands and he uses them. But Lord Chaitanya's weapons are his devotees and the holy name and his associates. So those are our weapons, and that's what it means to kill them, to kill the demoniac.
I mean, what is it killing the demoniac spirit? It's bringing people back to connection with Krishna. As a very practical example about the environment, this idea that you can just trash the planet and cut down trees without any concern, this is a demoniac mentality. It's not seeing the earth and all the planets are the body of God. Even in the so-called, primitive cultures in various places in South America, people, before they would cut down a tree, they would do a ceremony to the goddess in the tree, and we need this place, we're really sorry, we have to take it down. And they would acknowledge the fact that there's a sacredness within nature. This is actually the basis of real human society, is this understanding. Nowadays there's this idea that we have no concern for the universal body of the Lord. We just trash everything. And so there is, even with the extreme environmentalists, they don't have that connection. They may even be atheists and just feel that, in a disjointed way, that this seems wrong to kill nature and so forth. But the Krishna consciousness movement is able to actually give the real reason why there should be environmentalism, and the spirit that it should be done in. That everything, it's a sacred earth, and all the living entities in it are sacred. Unless somebody has that, they won't be able to have a universal application for environmentalism. Even the vegans are running, it was just announced recently that avocados are not vegan. I mean, they're going to run out of food. Because avocados and another really popular vegan food is not vegan anymore. Because they have to transport bees to different countries in order to pollinate them, otherwise the trees won't give the fruit. It's official. You're vegan, avocados are out, unless you're a cheater. Mukaravind Prabhu. Lucky I'm not a vegan.
Maharaj, one comment and question.
What?
The environmentalist, I remember when Radhika Raman Prabhu came and he was sharing that he took that portion of Prachetas when they awake and then they saw the whole world was filled with trees. Then he very nicely given some analogy that how there should be balance, that he took that particular section and he presented in some very big conference about the environment, how the Bhagavatam.
That's right.
I'm not exactly recalling, but he said how the balance should be there, like how when they saw that they did, but then it was not like without thinking. There was some purpose, because it was just overtaken the whole.
Yeah, he's recounting how Radhika Raman Prabhu just gave a seminar at ISV before we left. Pardon me? Nice. And one of the points that he made was a very ingenious paper that he had written about the Prachetas and the incident of them burning up the trees and so forth. I mean, how do you explain that in an academic conference? And he had a really nice insight into it. But I think the point is, too, that we have to be expert in presenting these kinds of arguments that get at the root of the problem. I don't also remember the exact points he made, although I have them in my notes. nearby, but it was ingenious and it was well received also, and that when those kinds of when preachers are out and they're well informed and they're thoughtful and they present these arguments, it can actually change things one person at a time and kill their demoniac spirit by reconnecting them to the proper conception of the Bhagavatam. Was that your point, Mukharvin?
I'd like to say, as I said yesterday, that when we read like this, Prabhupada's books, just read them. I mean, we're having really nice reflections, but what makes them really nice is the fact that we've heard for half an hour, 45 minutes, or even more sometimes, straight purports of Srila Prabhupada's books, and they just train our spiritual intelligence to be able to see things and be able to give, insights. And I'm convinced after seeing what I've seen over the last year, that even young people today, even millennials, when they hear Prabhupada's purports, they kind of get it at a level which, it's almost like when we were, when I met Matt and I looked at him and I was speaking to him and I saw myself 40 years ago. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I saw myself 40 years from now in a mirror, like when I was talking to you. So it's like a cycle, and it's coming to that point where there's going to be more and more young people who can actually hear Prabhupada's purports like this. So I'm promoting this idea that if we do this more, wherever we are, with whoever we're with, we'll get the strength and the conviction to do what he's saying properly, without compromising the philosophy and trying to say something that's make us more attractive to them rather than bring them into the reality of what is actually spiritual. I was thinking another thing, that is that, when we go out and we see what's going on in India, especially Uttar Pradesh, so much trash and so much pollution and so much whatever. But then every once in a while you'll come to a wall that they built and there's a tree branch going and they just kind of build the wall around it.
They put a tree in the middle of the street.
Or no, they built it.
What was that? Chadaratma showed one. It's like the street's going, and there's just the tree, big huge tree, right in the lane coming out because they didn't want to cut it down when they built it.
Exactly. That's what I was. Yeah, exactly. So you can see like that, it's something still there, as weird as it looks, Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Last couple points. Gopal's not convinced.
When McDonald's was built in Mathura, near the refinery, there were some devotees in Vrindavan. We were going to take it down. Like, literally, pretty seriously. Some of my friends had gone out there and made some attempts at graffitiing their signs, etc. And just the thing about killing the cows. It's so demoniac. It's the cause of war. And how do we turn people away from killing cows? I mean, it's happening in India. It's happening all over the world.
Well, I think that there has to be a comprehensive, long-term, and sustained effort to do things like that. If you just do terrorist acts, you'll be taken down you'll be tracked down, you'll be incarcerated, and so forth, and it won't have that much effect. I visited in Belize a botanical garden that was created by this botanist, and she had been for years trying to stop the deforestation of the rainforest, and then she developed a new doctrine, which was to show all the benefits of the various plants in the rainforest to the pharmaceutical industry. And so she reasoned that the only way that they would ultimately be able to the only way they ultimately would be able to make a difference would be to show the economic benefit of the rainforest. And then, there could be a systemic change. I mean, if there's an economic incentive, then I'm just giving this as an example of a macro kind of a solution rather than micro, like I'm going to blow the place up, individually and stuff. It won't make that much difference to the overall operation, graffitiing one franchise or something. But if there's a larger incentive and people are connected in a coalition, then there can be some ultimate change.
In the long term, Prabhupada told us many times that if you want to change, you have to change the hearts of the people. And that's why this mass book distribution is actually the answer. Even making your point, or agreeing with your point, that without having a prayas approach, where you got to have a result now, or else there's something wrong with what we're doing. If you keep doing this over generations and generations and generations, this will happen. It will happen like that, because we're seeing, relatively speaking, a much more sizable population who know about Krishna and are much more favorable to ideas that do cherish the ideas that we're talking about. Because there's a movement away from democracy now in many countries to the far right, nationalism, white supremacy, and all these nasty things. But there's a thing happening underneath, even in America now, just happened. The people will rise up because they can't, the hearts of people, they can't. And if enough of them do it, then things will change. But to try to do it the other way, it's really dangerous.
43-44. This narration describes the characteristics of the great and exalted devotee Prahlad Maharaj, his staunch devotional service, his perfect knowledge, and his perfect detachment from material contamination. It also describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers has described the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and has also described how the various abodes of the demigods and demons, regardless of how materially opulent, are destroyed by the mere direction of the Lord. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with descriptions of the characteristics of various devotees with reference to the service of the Lord. This Vedic literature is called Bhagavatam because it deals with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotee. By studying Srimad Bhagavatam under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, one can perfectly understand the science of Krishna, the nature of the material and spiritual worlds, and the aim of life. Srimad Bhagavatam Amalam Puranam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Vedic literature, as we have discussed in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, simply by understanding Srimad Bhagavatam, one can understand the science of the activities of the devotees, the activities of the demons, the permanent abode, and the temporary abode. Through Srimad Bhagavatam, everything is perfectly known, which reminds me also in this general discussion about righting wrongs and re-spiritualizing society. It was just mentioned how even in the heavenly planets, there are upheavals. You have basically a society in upper planetary systems which is predominantly in Sattva Gun, and everything runs pretty well. There's no cow slaughter and everything like that. But then you get, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Hiranyakashipu taking the whole place over and ruining everything. He reverted everything back. His goons came out and chopped down trees, burned all the, killed cows, everything. And so, it's the nature of the material world running in various cycles. Prabhupada mentions in that section that, wherever you go, he quoted Brahma Bhuvana Loka, from topmost planet down to the lowest. You're not going to find a place that remains stably in any situation for very long because of the shifting modes of nature. Not saying that we don't endeavor in every way possible, but we also have to be realistic. Furthermore, there's a way in which, when the demigods were defeated, that Vishnu told them, you have to wait, because this isn't the time. In fact, when we come to the 8th canto, we find that he actually recommends make an armistice with the demons, because you can't defeat them right now, so you got to cooperate with them. That's why they churned the ocean, to get the nectar. Armistice means that they work together, because it's a ceasefire, and it's just the way that you have to do it sometimes. So it's a long-term and very considered approach. Last verse before the break. The principles of religion by which one can actually understand the Supreme Personality of God are called Bhagavata-dharma. In this narration, therefore, which deals with these principles, actual transcendence is properly described. Purport: through the principles of religion, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman, the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, and Paramatma, the localized aspect of the Lord. When one is well conversant with all these principles, he becomes a devotee and performs Bhagavata Dharma. Prahlad Maharaj, the spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession, advised that this Bhagavata Dharma be instructed to students from the very beginning of their education. Komara achurat pragno dharman bhagavatan iha. To understand the science of the Supreme Personality of God, it is the real purpose of education. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. One must simply hear about and describe Lord Vishnu. This narration concerning Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev, therefore, has properly described spiritual, transcendental subjects. And that brings us to the cow break. We'll be back here at 25 minutes after. Gaur Premanande Haribol.
Text 46. Did you hear that? You watched that, right? You saw that mystic power? One who hears in chants this narration about the omnipotence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is certainly liberated from material bondage without fail. Text 47. Prahlad Maharaj was the best among exalted devotees. Anyone who with great attention hears this narration concerning the activities of Prahlad Maharaj, the killing of Hiranyakashipu, and the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nrsingadev, surely reaches the spiritual world where there is no anxiety. Text 48. Narada Muni continued, My dear Maharaj Yudhishthir, all of you, the Pandavas, are extremely fortunate, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, lives in your palace, just like a human being. Great saintly persons know this very well, and therefore they constantly visit this house. Purport: after hearing about the activities of Prahlad Maharaj, a pure devotee should be very anxious to follow in his footsteps. But such a devotee might be disappointed, thinking that not every devotee can come to the standard of Prahlad Maharaj. This is the nature of a pure devotee. He always thinks himself to be the lowest, to be incompetent and unqualified. Thus, after hearing the narration of Prahlad Maharaj's activities, Maharaj Yudhishthir, who was on the same standard of devotional service as Prahlad, might have been thinking of his own humble position. Narada Muni, however, could understand Maharaj Yudhishthir's mind, and therefore he immediately encouraged him by saying that the Pandavas were not less fortunate. They were as good as Prahlad Maharaj, because although Lord Nrsingadev appeared for Prahlad, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in its original form as Krishna was always living with the Pandavas. Although the Pandavas, because of the influence of Krishna's Yogamaya, could not think of their fortunate position, every saintly person, including the great sage Narada, could understand it, and therefore they constantly visited Maharaja Yudhishthira. Any pure devotee who is constantly conscious of Krishna is naturally very fortunate. The word Nriloke, meaning within the material world, indicates that before the Pandavas there had been many, many devotees, such as the descendants of the Yadu dynasty and Vashishta, Marichi, Kashyapa, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva, who were all extremely fortunate. The Pandavas, however, were better than all of them, because Krishna himself lived with them constantly. Narada Muni therefore specifically mentioned that within this material world, Nriloke, the Pandavas, were the most fortunate. The impersonal Brahman is Krishna himself, because Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman. He is the origin of the transcendental bliss sought by great saintly persons, yet he, the Supreme Person, is your most dear friend and constant well-wisher, and is intimately related to you as the son of your maternal uncle. Indeed, he is always like your body and soul. He is worshipable, yet he acts as your servant and sometimes as your spiritual master. Purport. There is always a difference of opinion about the absolute truth. One class of transcendentalists concludes that the absolute truth is impersonal, and another class concludes that the absolute truth is a person. In Bhagavad Gita, the absolute truth is accepted as the Supreme Person. Indeed, the Supreme Person himself, Lord Krishna, instructs in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham mattak paratanam nanyat. The impersonal Brahman is my partial manifestation, and there is no truth superior to me. That same Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acted as the supreme friend and relative of the Pandavas, and sometimes he even acted as their servant by carrying a letter from the Pandavas to Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. Because Krishna was the well-wisher of the Pandavas, he also acted as guru by becoming the spiritual master of Arjuna. Arjuna accepted Krishna as his spiritual master, Shishasteham, Shadimam, Tvam, Prapanam. And Krishna sometimes chastised him. For example, the Lord said, Ashochanan Vashochas Tvam, Priyavadan Jabashase. While speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. The Lord also said, Kutas Tva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samapashtitam. My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? Such was the intimate relationship between the Pandavas and Krishna. In the same way, a pure devotee of the Lord is always with Krishna through thick and thin. His way of life is Krishna. Shall I repeat that? In the same way, a pure devotee of the Lord is always with Krishna through thick and thin. His way of life is Krishna. This is the statement of the authority of Sri Narada Muni. Text 50.
Is there any indication where this is being discussed?
It didn't actually refer to a place, but it would have been Hastinapur. Where else would it have been? Yeah, where else would it have been? Hmm. 50. Exalted.
From 7.1.13. Formerly, when Maharaja Yudhishthira was performing the Rajasuya sacrifice, Narada, responding to his inquiry, recited a story in this connection.
There you go.
That would be Hastinapur.
It's in Hastinapur. 50. Exalted persons, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, could not properly describe the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. May the Lord, who is always worshipped as the protector of devotees by great saints who observe vows of silence, meditation, devotional service, and renunciation, be pleased with us. Purport. The Absolute Truth is sought by different persons in different ways, yet he remains inconceivable. Nonetheless, devotees like the Pandavas, the Gopis, the cowherd boys, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and all the inhabitants of Vrindavan do not need to practice conventional processes of meditation to attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he remains with them through thick and thin. Therefore, a saint like Narada, understanding the difference between transcendentalists and pure devotees, always prays that the Lord will be pleased with him. I would like to make a point here about inconceivable. I heard Gopi say a very nice thing about what inconceivable means. Shall I? You don't mind? He said it doesn't mean that you can't understand him. It means that you can't understand everything about him, and no one can understand everything about him, but you can understand enough to go back to him. So inconceivable actually means no one can understand everything about him. '51.
'51. My dear King Yudhishthira, long, long ago in history, a demon known as Maya Danava, who was very expert in technical knowledge, reduced the reputation of Lord Shiva. In that situation, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, saved Lord Shiva. Purport. Lord Shiva is known as Mahadeva, the most exalted demigod. Thus, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that although Lord Brahma did not know the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva could have known them. This historical incident proves that Lord Shiva derives power from Lord Krishna, the Param Brahman. 52. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, for what reason did the demon Maya Danava vanquish Lord Shiva's reputation? How did Lord Krishna save Lord Shiva and expand his reputation again? Kindly describe these incidents. Narada Muni said, when the demigods, who are always powerful by the mercy of Lord Krishna, fought with the Asuras were defeated, and therefore they took shelter of Maya Danava, the greatest of the demons. Maya Danava, the great leader of the demons, prepared 3 invisible residences and gave them to the demons. These dwellings resembled airplanes made of gold, silver, and iron. They were contained uncommon paraphernalia. My dear King Yudhishthira, because of these 3 dwellings, the commanders of the demons remained invisible to the demigods. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the demons, remembering their former enmity, began to vanquish the 3 worlds, the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems.
Give them an inch and they'll take a while. 56. Thereafter, when the demons had begun to destroy the higher planetary systems, the rulers of those planets went to Lord Shiva, fully surrendered unto him, and said, Dear Lord, we demigods living in the 3 worlds are about to be vanquished. We are your followers. Kindly save us. 57. The most powerful and able Lord Shiva reassured them and said, Do not be afraid. Then he fixed his arrows to his bow and released them toward the 3 residences occupied by the demons. 58. The arrows released by Lord Shiva appeared like fiery beams emanating from the sun globe and covered the 3 residential airplanes, which could then no longer be seen. 59. Attacked by Lord Shiva's golden arrows, all the demoniac inhabitants of those 3 dwellings lost their lives, and fell down. Then the great mystic Mahadanava dropped the demons into a nectarian well that he had created. Purport. The asuras are generally extremely powerful because of their mystic yogic power. However, as Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam Atmana Shadhavan Bhajate Yomam Samyuktatamomataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. The actual purpose of mystic yoga is to concentrate one's attention fully on the personality of Godhead Krishna and always think of him, Madgate Nantaratmana. To attain such perfection, one must undergo a certain process, Hatha Yoga, and through this yoga system, the practitioner achieves some uncommon mystic power. The asuras, however, instead of becoming devotees of Krishna, utilize this mystic power for their personal sense gratification. Mahadanava, for example, is mentioned here as Mahayogi, a great mystic, but his business was to help the asuras. Nowadays we are actually seeing that there are some yogis who cater to the senses of materialists, and there are impostors who advertise themselves as God. Mahadanava was such a person, a god among the demons, and he could perform some wonderful feats, one of which is described here. He made a well filled with nectar and dipped the asuras into that nectarian well. This nectar was known as Mrita Sanjivayita. Mrita Sanjivayita. Mrita Sanjivayita. For it could bring a yata. Mrita Sanjivayita. Some change. That's the Sanskrit, or you're reading the verse? It's been corrected.
I hope that explains a lot. We've been taking the wrong thing.
Oh yes. You can't change. You can't change. You gotta enshrine the mistakes in. This nectar was known as Mrita Sanjivita, for it could bring a dead body back to a big body to life. Bring a dead body to life. Mrita Sanjivayani. No. Mrita Sanjivani. Sorry. Mrita Sanjivani is also an Ayurvedic preparation. It is a kind of liquor that invigorates even a person on the verge of death. Text 60. When the dead bodies of the demons came in touch with the nectar, their bodies became invincible to thunderbolts. Endowed with great strength, they got up like lightning penetrating clouds.
One. Thank you, Huntley. Seeing Lord Shiva very much aggrieved and disappointed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, considered how to stop this nuisance created by Mahadanava. Then Lord Brahma became a calf and Lord Vishnu a cow. And at noon they entered the residences and drank all the nectar in the well. The demons could see the calf and cow, but because the illumination... The demons could see the calf and cow, but because of the illusion created by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demons cannot forbid them. The great mystic Mahadanava became aware that the calf and cow were drinking the nectar, and he could understand this to be the unseen power of providence. Thus he spoke to the demons who were grievously lamenting. Devo suro naro nyova neshvaro stiha kaschana atmano nyasyava dishtam daivano pohitum dvayaho. Mahadanava said, one of my favorite verses, what has been destined by the Supreme Lord for oneself for others, or for both oneself and others, cannot be undone anywhere or by anyone, whether one be a demigod, a demon, a human being, or anyone else. Purport. The Supreme Lord is one, Krishna, the Vishnu Tattva. Krishna expands himself into Vishnu Tattva personal expansions, Vamsha, who control everything. Maya Danava said, however I plan, you plan, or both of us plan, the Lord has planned. The Lord has planned what is to happen. No one's plan will be successful without his sanction. We may make our own various plans, but unless they are sanctioned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, they will never be successful. Hundreds and millions of plans are made by all kinds of living entities, but without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, they are futile. I can't believe that happened so fast. How did that happen? Well, it's still at 65.
Really? Narada Muni continued. Thereafter, Lord Krishna, by his own personal potency, consisting of religion, knowledge, renunciation, opulence, austerity, education, and activities, equipped Lord Shiva with all the necessary paraphernalia, such as a chariot, a charioteer, a flag, horses, elephants, a bow, a shield, and arrows. When Lord Shiva was fully equipped in this way, he sat down on the chariot with his arrows and bow to fight with the demons. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.13.16, Vaishnavanam yatakshambhu, Lord Shiva is the best of the Vaishnavas, the devotees of Lord Krishna. Indeed, he is one of the Mahajanas, the 12 authorities on Vaishnava philosophy, Swayambhur Naradak Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu, etc. Lord Krishna is always prepared to help all the Mahajans and devotees in every respect. Kauntiya Pratijanihi Nami Bhakta Pranashyati. Although Lord Shiva is very powerful, he lost a battle to the Asuras, and therefore he was morose and disappointed. However, because he is one of the chief devotees of the Lord personally equipped him with all the paraphernalia for war. The devotee therefore must serve the Lord sincerely, and Krishna is always in the background to protect him, and if need be, to equip him fully to fight with his enemy. For devotees, there is no scarcity of knowledge or material requisites for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. 67. My dear King Yudhishthir, the most powerful Lord Shiva joined the arrows to his bow, and at noon he set fire to all 3 residences of the demons, and thus destroyed them. Therefore he is called Tripurari. Text 68. Seated in their airplanes in the sky, the inhabitants of the higher planetary systems beat many kettle drums. The demigods, saints, pitas, siddhas, and various great personalities showered flowers on the head of Lord Shiva, wishing him all victory, and the apsaras began to dance and chant with great pleasure. Text 69. O King Yudhishthir, thus Lord Shiva is known as Tripurari, the annihilator of the 3 dwellings of the demons, because he burnt these dwellings to ashes. Being worshipped by the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva returned to his own abode. Text 70. The Lord Sri Krishna appeared as a human being, yet he performed many uncommon and wonderful pastimes by his own potency. How can I say more about his activities than what has already been said by great saintly persons? Everyone can be purified by his activities simply by hearing about them from the right source. Purport. Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedic literatures fully explain that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna appears in human society as an ordinary human being, but acts very uncommonly for the well-being of the entire world. One should not be influenced by the illusory energy and think Lord Krishna to be an ordinary human being. Those who really seek the absolute truth come to the understanding that Krishna is everything. Vasudeva Ksevamiti. Such great souls are very rare. Nonetheless, if one studies the entire Bhagavad Gita as it is, Krishna is very easy to understand. The Krishna consciousness movement is just trying to make Krishna known all over the world as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, how's that for a mission statement? I'm going to read this again. Alrighty. I got to read that again. Absolute truth, come to the understanding that Krishna is everything. Vasudeva Ksevamiti. Such great souls are very rare. Nonetheless, if one studies the entire Bhagavad Gita as it is, Krishna is very easy to understand. The Krishna consciousness movement is just trying to make Krishna known all over the world as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. If people take this movement seriously, their lives as human beings will be successful. Thus the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th canto, 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prahlad, the best among exalted devotees.
Canto 7, Chapter 11, the perfect society, 4 social classes. Did you have any reflections? Yes.
Just wanted to ask if this 64th verse was the one you said one of your favorite, which you use when it's most difficult. You quote it sometimes in classes that this is the verse. The 64 is a verse when the most difficult time comes. You can use that. Was that or some other?
Oh no, it's a different one. It's from the 4th canto, Preeti Maharaj.
Oh, okay.
Although this is, a nice verse to remember. Whatever has been destined for oneself, or for others, or for both oneself and others, cannot be undone anywhere by anyone at any time, whether one be a demigod, a human being, or anyone else. Whatever has been destined by the Supreme for oneself, or for others, or for both oneself and others, cannot be undone anywhere at any time, whether one be a demigod, a human being, or anyone else. That sounds legalistic. That's like when you walk in the door, that's on the sign. It's like, this is our final policy, sir. It's not going to change. Mukharvin Prabhu?
Sorry, just to understand this statement more better, like even in when Prabhupada was in his last time, then he requested that if Krishna you wish that you can elongate the life. So how this both statement reconcile that if it is destined, then how the prayers works? And
well, just because it's destined, destiny can change. We heard that earlier in a purport that liberated soul is not. Prabhupada quoted that Yastvindra Gopamata Vendra Mohosa Karma Bandhanu Rupa Palabhaja Namatanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintucha Bhakti Bhaja. The karma of and Iha Yasya Haridasya, etc. So he said that just because it's destined for a normal living entity, one who's taken shelter of the Lord, Krishna changes destiny. So Prabhupada said he was negotiating with Krishna about staying, and he said, if Krishna wants me to leave, what can I do? But I'll ask him, and back and forth.
But in this verse it says like for the demigod, for the no one can, if it is destined, it is no one.
It's different for a liberated soul.
So this verse is not talking about the liberated soul. This is more for the common person.
Well, ultimately, even for the liberated soul, whatever Krishna decides, that's what's going to happen. But Krishna takes into consideration the desires of his pure devotees. I mean, look at Prahlad Maharaj. He didn't really have any desires, but Krishna told him, I want you to stay here and rule the demons for so many millions of years. Dhruva Maharaj also.
Also, sometimes when Prabhupada was confronted with that kind of...
Turn it up a little bit, because...
No,
just turn it up. It won't last.
Me or that?
Okay, thank you.
I won't last or it won't last?
Keeping the microphone in front of you won't last. It'll go...
Why?
Because you're meditating so deeply on the Lord.
Why? One of these days, Alice... I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
Sometimes when Prabhupada was confronted with that kind of inevitability or that kind of statement, kind of providential statement, he would say, yes, but it doesn't say when. In other words, if you hear like we're hearing, you're going back to Godhead. It doesn't say exactly when, not like right now, this moment. Oh, it could be. But like Prabhu was saying, there's so many things that could happen between now and that time that happens, and it's not like a... Yeah, I know. First you want me to put it in my mouth, and then you want to take it away from me. What's going on here? I'm becoming schizophrenic here.
Becoming? No becoming.
In 51, text 51, in pastime of Nrsingadev, just kind of like it's finished, wrapped up, and then it jumps straight to this Mayadanava, like out of the blue, or is there any indication of how or why this comes up all of a sudden? Oh, by the way, there's this extra story I wanted to tell you or something like that.
No, there was a statement there. Let it.
Nobody can hear you. Online or outside, or even in here. Go ahead.
Wasn't that an example that Narada Muni made so that he can show how Krishna takes care of the devotees? And he mentioned just like in Lord Shiva who lost his reputation and he had to do this, and here's the story.
So your contention is that Krishna is talking about the glories of the devotees and how he takes care of them, and he gave this as an example. Is that what you're saying? Could be, but it sounds logical, but the transition statement wasn't there anywhere saying this means one thing to another. We have something here, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
No, we don't really have something, but I've just noticed that what Krishna said before, what Narada Muni said before going into the Tripurari Lila was about how the Lord is so happy to be the servant of his devotees. So it seems to be the connecting point.
So it's, yeah. What
was that? What you just
Mahendra Prabhu was saying,
okay.
Right?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Okay, good. That kind of helps. What else? Other things? Reflections? Okay, go ahead.
I had a reflection from the previous section when Maharaj mentioned about hearing. Regularly, if we hear, then our spiritual intelligence will develop. And I remembered how the story of last days of Srila Prabhupada, when he asked Giriraj Maharaj, the dead of night, and asked him how will this movement continue, and he said it will require intelligence. And we may want. I was wondering many times what exactly that means. What kind of intelligence? But now, when you said it, it means spiritual intelligence, which will come by long hearing, regular hearing.
He's also said organization, not just intelligence. Go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada also said, I was in the room when he said it, just go on discussing Srimad Bhagavatam and everything will remain clear. Well, among yourselves. Just go on discussing Srimad Bhagavatam among yourselves and everything will remain clear. So I take it that means we will be given the spiritual intelligence, by doing that.
Also, another historical piece of information I got from Abhiram Prabhu, because I was talking about this. Abhiram was there as Prabhupada's nurse, and he said Prabhupada was asking other people the same thing. And the way he was saying it was, it will go on. That was his question. I mean, sometimes it gets paraphrased in different ways, but Abhiram said that's what Prabhupada was at. He said he even asked him, and he asked Giriraj Maharaj and others who came in, because it was on Prabhupada's mind before he would possibly be leaving. But that's how he said it. It will go on. And so, I mean, there are various instructions Prabhupada gave at the end. You can't isolate just one and say, okay, that's it. Let's drop everything else and, like Org Dev, let's get, I mean, that's all important and everything like that. But you have to also take and consider what Maharaj just said, which is also enshrined in the last purports of the Bhagavatam that Prabhupada spoke about how to solve problems by sitting together and discussing Bhagavatam. And he said it in other places as well.
Right. It stopped working. Oh. Yeah, that statement that I just said, and the timing of when he would have actually done that statement in the purport towards the end of would have been very close.
It will go on. Anything else? Okay, we're going to get started on the Perfect Society for Social Classes. Text number 1. Shukadeva Goswami continued, after hearing about the activities and character of Prahlad Maharaj, which are adored and... Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. Where did you come from? Leho Ma. Shimsatsui Samsui Pom Manka Komintin New Territory or way up on the peak? Doje. Ilo Ping An. Bless you. You know why you get blessings when you sneeze? Because all the systems in your body stop, including your heart. It all gets suspended. And then for that second, like, anything can happen. So it's like you need a blessing when it's... we're always... although I think, and I'm going to live forever in this body, even when I sneeze, heart stops, everything, like anything can happen at that point. So it's like, we take it for granted, bless you or whatever, but it's like at any second. Where did what come from? The sneeze or the blessing? Oh, the tradition? I don't know, I couldn't trace it out. Christianity. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Chuta. Shukadeva Goswami continued, after hearing about the activities and character of Prahlad Maharaj, which are adored and discussed among great personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Yudhishthira Maharaj, the most respectful king among exalted personalities, again inquired from the great Saint Narada Muni in a mood of great pleasure. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, my dear Lord, I wish to hear from you about the principles of religion by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. I wish to hear about the general occupational duties of human society and the system of social and spiritual advancement known as Varnashrama-dharma. Purport: Sanatana-dharma means devotional service. The word Sanatan refers to that which is eternal, which does not change but continues in all circumstances. We have several times explained what the eternal occupational duty of the living being is. Indeed, it has been explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. The real occupational duty of the living entity is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if one prefers to deviate from this principle, he remains a servant because that is his eternal position. But one serves Maya, the illusory energy, material energy. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is an attempt to guide human society to serving the personality of Godhead instead of serving the material world with no real profit. Our actual experience is that every man, animal, bird, and beast, indeed, every living entity is engaged in rendering service. Even though one's body or one's superficial religion may change, every living entity is always engaged in the service of someone. Therefore, the mentality of service is called the eternal occupational duty. This eternal occupational duty can be organized through the institution of Varnashrama, in which there are 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and 4 ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaj inquired from Narada Muni about the principles of sanatana-dharma for the benefit of human society. O best of the Brahmanas, you are directly the son of Prajapati, Lord Brahma. Because of your austerities, mystic yoga, and trance, you are considered the best of all of Lord Brahma's sons. 4. No one is superior to you in peaceful life and mercy, and no one knows better than you how to execute devotional service or how to become the best of the Brahmanas. Therefore, you know all the principles of confidential religious life, and no one knows them better. Yudhishthira Maharaj knew that Narada Muni is the supreme spiritual master of human society who can teach the path of spiritual liberation leading to the understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, it is for this purpose that Narada Muni compiled his Bhakti Sutra and gave directions in the Narada Pancharatra. To learn about religious principles and the perfection of life, one must take instruction from the disciplic succession of Narada Muni. I was just thinking about some talks I heard from Hridayananda Maharaj about the history of Buddhism, and he was saying how the actual recorded information from the teachings of the Buddha, who is kind of it's a little amorphous about who he actually was and stuff, are very minimal. There are very few actual solid things that he said. Meanwhile, there's a worldwide trend towards Buddhism, just based on a few little teachings that were there, and then a lot of extrapolation after that. And then you get what we're starting with, which is a much wider base. By millions of yojanas, starting with Srimad Bhagavatam. And then when I heard this, the Narada Bhakti Sutra and so forth, you just consider how the best of all the devotees have actually codified the process of religion, and how that bodes well for actually implanting the system of Dharma, Sanatana-dharma, into the whole world because of the literatures and how well organized they are, compared to so many other world religions. Our Krishna consciousness movement is directly in the line of the Brahma Sampradaya. Narada Muni received instructions from Lord Brahma and in turn transmitted the instructions to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva instructed his son Shukadeva Goswami, who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, because Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami and Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna. There is no difference between them. If we strictly follow the principles of disciplic succession, we are certainly on the right path of spiritual liberation or eternal engagement in devotional service. 5. Sri Narada Muni said, after first offering my obeisances unto Lord Krishna, the protector of the religious principles of all living entities, let me explain the principles of the eternal religious system of which I have heard from the mouth of Narayana. Purport. The word Aja refers to Krishna, who explains in Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Ajopisan avyayatma, I am ever existing, and thus I never take birth. There is no change to my existence. There is no change in my existence. And I just wanted to comment on the word ashrama, because we, in the second chapter of the first canto, Shrama Evahi Kevalam is mentioned when one's occupational duty doesn't lead to an increased desire to hear the messages of Krishna. Then Sutta Goswami says Shrama Evahi Kevalam, which means it's useless labor. He says so emphatically. Ashrama means the place where there's no shrama, because ashrama. So it's like, a society that is protected from shrama, making sure that everybody, according to their propensities, psychophysiological natures, can work in such a way that they're not engaged in shrama, the ashramas. And that ends, yes, Prabhu?
I was curious if an acharya gave that, or where you heard that, or if there's a history to it, or personal realization.
I heard it from a Sanskritist. That ends tonight's reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we thank everyone for attending. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, Bo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Vanchakalpadurvascha kripasinabhevacha patitanam pavanebhyo. Maharaj wants to explain something about the ending. They'll explain it. When you go like that, you're supposed to stop, right?
Yeah.
See, he's been disappointed 3 nights in a row, because when you go like this, that means it stops like completely. There's no continuation. That's why he walks away here feeling frustrated, angry.
Wait a second, that's a little bit of an extrapolation there. But I will say that my conductor, when I was in the UCLA wind ensemble, name was, what was his name? Can't remember his name.
Freddie Hubbard.
No, he was very famous.
He's famous.
Yeah. Clarence Sawhill.
Oh, Clarence.
Clarence Sawhill. He had not only perfect pitch, but he could tell anybody who was out of tune, even this much of any instrument, and he would point it out, and he would replace it, and then everything would come together. And so that's what it means, to come together, when everybody's on the exact same page. And then when you have, when it stops, all exactly at the same time, there's a force that comes from it, and it actually perpetuates the experience.
Take 2. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, Bo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Much better, yeah. Clarence Sawhill will be very pleased with us. Vanchakalpadurvascha kripasinabhevacha patita.
Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, hey, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman.